right, so thank you so much for joining us today and answering our questions and sharing your experience and your journey. Basically, would you like to share briefly, like, how this journey started, when you started trying to conceive? How did that all begin?
So we had a miscarriage, and then we had a child naturally after the miscarriage. So I have to call it like a rainbow baby because you're quite fertile. Um, but then, so I think I had, and then I had some polyps. So I came to Dunya and had the IVF, and the first cycle wasn't successful. And I asked about the quality of my results and my eggs, and the quality of my eggs were very poor. And I said, is there anything I could do to improve the quality? And they said, well, because I already ate healthily, didn't drink too much, did lots of exercise. There's very little I could do to change the result. And I didn't want to keep repeating the cycle and not get the results. So I said, what could we do to ensure a successful result? And that was going down the donor route. So we had a donor, which was super fast. As soon as we made that decision, it was really, really fast. We was given two options of two donors, and we selected one. And then, literally a couple of months later, I was pregnant. And we had PGD, genetic testing on the embryos, so there were very high quality ones that were able to be implanted. And the whole experience was just really professional, but warm and personal. And we had Inna, who was my coordinator, who was just like an angel. So she was on WhatsApp regularly with me, keeping me up to date when I did go through the IVF myself, the drugs, what I should be taking, when, how I'm feeling, all that. And then again, when we did the donor route, she again kept me up to date with everything. And when I was in the clinic, she was with me at all of the appointments or procedures. The clinic was like really, really clean and modern, and it had a separate space for everything. So in reception, it was very open and airy and bright, and the staff in reception was really friendly and warm, because you are quite nervous when you arrive there. It's a scary thing to go through. So it was a very calm, warm, relaxing place to be to start. And then there's just everything had a separate area. So anything financial was in the office. Then there was like the separate rooms for like procedures or appointments. Inna was always there, so she could, just keep me calm or translate anything or elaborate if I didn't understand. And then like downstairs there was the theatre, very, very clean and very, very modern. And when I was put to sleep, when I woke up, she was there right next to me. So and the clinic was just very sort of like modern, high tech. They're using like thumbprints to get through doors, and just everybody was very warm and friendly. But it was also it felt very professional and very well thought through. So it was just such a good experience, and obviously we did have some children out of it. So we had two healthy embryos. Now at the time, I didn't really question about putting two or one in. I just said I would put in both in, and they said yeah. Like obviously in hindsight, we got twins. We weren't after twins, and we were quite a shock for us. But I suppose two babies over no babies, I think, because sometimes I think, should I have put more thought into that? But then I suppose, yeah, like 2 over 1 is better. And I think if I had my time again, I probably would end up putting 2 in. But at the time I was thinking, what have I done? Why have I put 2 in? And perfectly healthy pregnancy. I gave birth naturally. They were not early. Everything like textbook. No
Wonderful.
issues whatsoever. I was out of hospital within 24 hours of giving birth, less than 24 hours. Yeah, and they're both healthy. They're very different. I think twins often are. They're not identical, but a lot of people think that they are because they look very similar. And they've just started school. So, yeah, they're thriving. And I'd recommend, like, particularly the donor route, because I think a lot of people just keep going over and over again. And if they can't get what they want, then I think this is a really, and because I've had a baby not through a donor, I can compare the two. And, you are pregnant and you are giving birth. So it is still the same experience, other than that it's,
That's what I was gonna ask you. How was it deciding to go through the donor route and not with your own eggs? Was that challenging? Was it difficult? Was it a hard decision to make?
Not for me, because I so desperately wanted the right result, and I just didn't want to keep going through it over and over again, not getting anywhere. And I'm like a realist. I want to know the facts. I want to know what the likelihood is. And if the likelihood is my eggs are so poor, because I was in my like mid to late 30s, if I'm not going to get the result of my eggs, or it's going to take a long time, for me, once I'd heard that, I suppose it's like the not knowing of something is horrible, but when you know, you can just tackle it. So once I knew, and that wasn't pushed on me. I mean, it was really brought up by me, because I'm the one that wanted to know what the future was going to look like. So once I even remember where I was in Cyprus when I made the decision, and I felt so at peace with it, because I knew that this was likely going to result in a child, and it did. Yeah, and I completely the same experience than with my first child. So
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so that's kind of, I think some people might struggle a little bit more with that choice, but
yeah.
it feels like it came more naturally to you,
And I
which is
suppose,
really
like, for somebody who doesn't have a child, they might worry about how it would feel, and, using somebody else's egg. But yeah, all I can say is it doesn't really feel any different. I mean, you're still carrying a child, and, it is no different. And at the end of the day, you're able to be a mum. So
yeah. I think
yeah,
it's a very positive message. I think a lot of people will appreciate hearing that if they're going through something like this. Yeah. Awesome. So, you talked a lot about Dunya and how your experience was there, but what led you to going to Cyprus in the first place, or choosing Dunya?
You are listening to the Dunya IVF Clinic podcast, From Hope to Happiness. To learn more about IVF treatments, visit our website, www.dunyaivf.com, and download our ebook, A Complete Guide to Assisted Reproduction.
we did a lot of research, and once we were there, once we were in the clinic, it were obvious that this was a very, wasn't like a backstreet clinic. It was a very,
Established, yeah.
a very
Yeah.
good clinic. Yeah, like it felt very legit, and we were very looked after, very, very much so. And the fact that they have interpreters for all these different languages is so good, because not everybody speaks the same language, and it just means that if doctors are not able to articulate things because of the language barrier, your interpreter is, and it's almost like they become like your best friend, because you can just be asking them questions all the time, and because you're on WhatsApp, you can just fire messages to them, and they will send you everything, because doctors are there to be doctors and to do all the technical things and the hard things, and whereas the interpreters are I don't really know what you call them, but they're there to really be there. They're like accessible, like constantly. And she came and met me, and it just felt like just very, very comfortable, like somebody's looking at, because I suppose don't you appreciate that, if you was going to just a clinic in your own country and you just popped there, whereas you are coming from another country, it's not the same. So I think that's why the service is so personable, because it's different than just going to somewhere in your own country. And they've cracked that, they've made that so you can feel really, really secure with that situation. And, if you do need to go to like a pharmacy, they're telling you where the pharmacies are, like there's nothing not thought of at all.
I think,
Right.
I think as well, just going back to the doctors looking after the technical aspect, but I think going through IVF, particularly for Joanne, it's a really emotionally stressful experience, particularly if you have a failed cycle, which we did. And I think certainly the coordinators and the staff around the medical professionals at Dunya really smoothed that experience, particularly for Joanne. When she got emotional and upset, the coordinator was there for emotional support as well, and helping her overcome some of that. So I think that's what Joanne was trying to say, is that it was like the whole package was taken care of, which I think, isn't always the case, to be fair, with different clinics and hospitals that you can visit.
Right.
You're not just another patient, are you? You are really, you're a person. You are very much person, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because it's a scary thing nonetheless to have to go through this, and then going abroad is obviously something difficult. And so it's very important that you have the structure and the support system to
Yeah, and that's
support
why I'd
that.
recommend done you over anywhere else because of that. Because you are so desperate for a child, the utter desperation and the thoughts you go through, like you go through every detail of the whole experience in your head so much that it's not just about the travel and the going somewhere else. It's like it's very, very, it's emotional. You want it so much, and when you feel like you can't have something, you want it even more. And particularly for people who've not got a child at all. I mean, I did have a child, but for people that haven't, I cannot even imagine. I mean, I felt desperate, and it took over my whole life. That's the only thing I could think about. So, yeah, but it just felt just like a hand holding, really. So I kind of think of Inna as like an angel sent from heaven. Just yeah.
So you did not have any attempts of IVF at home. Everything, your IVF journey started in Cyprus.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't have any experience regarding that. So you said that you had one failed round, but that was with your own eggs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So would you like to share just like what that experience feels like? I mean, I know it's a very emotional thing. It's very difficult to go through. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have anything you'd like to share on that.
I mean, so the first time when I had the polyp, it felt like an obstacle because I didn't realize I had polyps. I knew I'd had a miscarriage before, but I wasn't fully sure if there was anything wrong with my eggs or anything because I suppose Henry was this rainbow baby after the miscarriage. So I suppose he was more like a miracle baby, really. But the polyp felt like an obstacle and a frustration and almost like a layer of desperation because the polyp kept reoccurring and I felt like this is just spoiling everything. And why is this polyp? I've had an operation to have it cut out. Why are polyps coming back all the time? And then when it failed, it's the thing that you want the most in the world is you can't have it. It's just it consumes you.
It is desperation. That word that you use, it was a feeling desperation. It's I mean, it's a few years ago now, but I think you start positive because when we were doing the drug cycles, you think you're going to get what you want. You're on a journey to get what you want. And then when you're told, and I think it was also the feedback on terms of the quality of the embryos, that none were viable or anywhere close to being viable. And I think some of the embryos had even, when they were trying to do the PGD testing, it just disintegrated. So it was that sort of feeling of desperation in that, and that that you think you're going somewhere, and then you're told that actually you're not going there, and not only not going there, that there isn't many options in terms of the quality of the.
There's nothing you can do to change the concept.
There's very, very, yeah. It was a kind of start.
Like I was told, you could just not drink alcohol, and you could just eat so healthy, and you could maybe change the chances a little bit, but it wouldn't be significant. And so, but for me, it's like once you've been told that, as much as it was really horrible, it was okay. I know that now. This is really terrible, but there must be another way. Like, tell me if there's a way. Like, is this it? Is this the end of the journey, because I didn't really want to go down adoption, even though I would have done if I had to. I didn't really want to do that. So yeah, it was just when I was faced with what could be next and was told that there was an option, it definitely massively helped it, because then it was just a case of trying to get my head around that, because and actually it really helped a lot, because I thought this can still happen. And you did have to battle with the fact that Ed's sperm's being used, but kind of not anything from me. And I felt some kind of guilt for that a little bit, because for my husband, because I'm kind of pushing him into this that I really want, and does he? But you know, I was so desperate that I'd kind of it was tough. That's just what wanted to happen. But you know, and because I kind of felt like I have to grapple with this, but does it really matter to you? But yeah, like it, yeah, it worked. We meant we could have what we wanted, and I think Ed just wanted me to get the result, and was
Yeah.
and we did.
Nice.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just quite. It is a big deal to do that, and also like the guilt, because I felt like somebody has, you know, gone through IVF for me, and it's not just here's my egg. You don't just say here you go. She'll have had to gone through IVF and, you know, be put to sleep and have the egg taken out. All the thing I went through, she'd gone through that for me, and that's something I struggled with a lot. Like, how can somebody do that for me? And yeah, like it. And it's anonymous, but I was so like desperate to sort of have any information about her, and because and then I was like pestering Ed, can't you give your sperm away? Like, we need to give back somehow, and you know, because yeah, like that's the thing I maybe struggled with the most, is just that somebody has done that, and not a small thing, for me, and yeah, and that's not very common in the UK. Not many people do that for people, so. Yeah, I just can't. It's just mind blowing that somebody would do that, and I wish I could do it, but obviously my eggs are rubbish, so nobody would want my eggs. But maybe the girls would do that in the future, and I'd love that, because yeah, like it makes things possible for people, and it's different to surrogacy, because surrogacy must be very hard, but you get to experience the pregnancy. You get to give birth, you know, and I think some of you is kind of in the child, and they do kind of pick up traits from you along the way. There's not all that much about it on the internet, but there is bits about it, and they do pick up bits of you. So you do still feel that. Particularly one of the girls is very much like me, and the other girl is very much like Ed. And, you know, you kind of start to see like resemblances of you and that child, and then it does make you feel more connected to them. And they know about the whole experience. I know they're a bit small, because I don't want them to ever be in the future sort of be told to have this sprung on them. I want them to sort of be aware of it from when they're young enough to not really understand it. So then it's something, because you know, I worry that they'll be upset about it, but I hope they'll just see like the beauty of it.
Yeah. How old are they now?
So 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was around 5 years ago when this all started. How long were you trying to conceive naturally before you decided that you're going to go down the IVF route?
Was it about a year? Yeah, about a year.
Okay. Not a very long window.
No, because once I found out about the quality of my eggs, I just wasn't willing to keep going.
To wait, or to,
yeah. All the wait as well, because time was ticking by.
And actually going to get harder.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to drag on. I mean, I am a very impatient person. You know, what's my options? Let's just jump on it straight away. And once we started the journey, to me, that's it now. We're on the journey. We want to do what we can and make this journey happen, and not drag it out for years and just hope. Let's try again. Let's hope, you know.
She had and she had the polyps in her. They found polyps in her ovaries as well, which had to be removed in an operation. But then they recurred as well. So
did delay things a little bit.
So, and that was a recurring situation, that you would get them removed and they would come back, and okay, I see. Well, would you maybe like, for the purpose of this video, to bring back the kids and maybe have them introduce themselves?
Yeah.
I'll
go and get them. I'll go get them.
Perfect. Hello again. Hi. Can you guys tell me your names one more time, because I forgot?
Emma. Anna.
It's so nice to meet you. It's wonderful to meet you. You guys look great.
Little twinnies,
beautiful family.
Little twinnies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is there anything else you would like to share, or advice that you would like to give someone who's going through the same thing?
I suppose the main two things are just I have not one bad thing to say about Dunya, like 100% perfect in every possible way and the way we would want and need in IVF. And two, that like the donor situation, you know, it really is worth it. And I think people should consider it more. Because like,
I think that's a very important message. I really do.
Yeah, I just don't think a lot of people consider it, but yeah. And then get little cuties like this.
Yes. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.